Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So first and foremost, first I'd like to get a sense of what you make of the process so far.
Okay. When you talk about the process of
the
what has
recapitalization process,
happened, the recapitalization process. So what is good from my perspective, especially with NAICOM, is that NAICOM has taken a definite step in trying to monitor what is going on within the industry. So, of course, in the past, if you know very well, there has been that clamor that within the industry, do we need the recapitalization? Do we need injection of funds and all of that? So this time around, what NICOM has done within the ambit of the law, of course, is to now set a monitoring process to have, a good understanding of what is going on, what are players in the industry actually doing. If you are bringing in funds, what kind of funds are you bringing in? Who are the people bringing in the funds? Who are the investors? What is the source of the of those funds as well? If you are going into merger, of course, trying to ensure, and if you remember, during the last banking merger process, what happened significantly, especially for those that went into the merger and acquisition process, was that there were quite a lot of toxic assets that could not be substantiated, but had been used as part of the capital contribution and all of that. And at the end of the day, of course, the new bank had to suffer for it. So NICOM is also working to ensure that there are no toxic items brought into the merger. And of course, one of the things NICOM has also said in terms of contribution is that you could bring in assets, but those assets must be readily converted to cash. So basically, what NICOM has done is to set the pace, and also is monitoring what is going on within the industry to ensure that there is fair play and there is level ground for everybody to be able to participate in the new recapitalization process.
All right, looking at this process, so far as at the 30th of October, we heard that about 44 companies, their plans have been approved.
Yeah.
Some had their plans rejected and were asked to go and amend those plans. But I'm trying to look at the red flags. You touched on a couple of them, though. But I'd like you to speak freely on, what exactly some other criteria that NICOM was looking at in ensuring that the ones who scaled the hurdles, did right, and what the others didn't do so well.
Okay, so one of the key things that NICOM has said as basis for injection of capital or merger is that, look, if you are bringing funds, we need to know those funds. We need to know the sources. We need to know who are bringing the funds. Are these shareholders? What is your plan? How soon are those funds going to come in? Who are the sponsors behind these investments and the new capital that is coming in? So NICOM, of course, probably working with the central bank and other regulators, is trying to ensure that whatsoever funds that is coming in are genuine. You don't bring in, you don't launder capital either that has been stolen from other sources, and then, of course, recapitalization could be a readily available source for you to inject those things. And of course, doing their background check to ensure that those bringing it are actually free of any form of accusation here and there. Then, of course, for mergers, like I said earlier on, to ensure that those that are combining business, of course, it is essential for you as investors or as entities to have done your background checks between each other to ensure that you have like minds, your vision and mission are going to work together. But NICOM beyond that is to ensure that whosoever is coming together will work. And at the end of the day, there will be no need for any form of extra capital or whatsoever that is going to jeopardize that particular process. So up till date, NICOM is ensuring that that process that it has set for itself and for the industry is working effectively.
All right. See, it's good when you brought up the M&A space, because I was actually going to speak specifically on that at some point. And I want to get into that now, because part of what they put together earlier as part of the timelines that they set was that all M&A activity must be completed 60 days before that deadline. How for the ones who are seeking that option, we'll talk about the other options later.
Okay.
How are they faring on that front?
Yeah, for what we've seen so far, there's been a lot of meetings. Traction is gained. You've had professionals coming together, discussing, looking, and of course submitting those things to NICOM to verify and to approve. So for those that have been approved, what NICOM has done essentially is to see that appropriate timetable has been set. People are discussing and looking into the books. But very key, and from my perspective, is that all across the table must ensure that whatsoever you are merging together are things that are genuine and that, can be reckoned with and that can stand the test of time over the future of the company that is going to come out of this M&A process.
All right, then we've seen companies take other routes as well. We've seen possible right issues being listed. Also, the possibility of IPOs as well are there. We have private placements also possible in there. But for the new capital coming in, though, we've seen some names like Linkage Assurance, coming up with raising up their capital to about 15 billion. There, what do you have to say about the type of capital coming in, especially the ones who are looking in the capital markets?
Okay, I think hopefully. We hope that if shareholders, because one of the key things shareholders and investors will be looking at is the returns on their investment. What am I going to get out of it? So there needs to be that campaign. And of course, what is the entity bringing on table? How fast is the company ensuring that there will be quick returns? Because if in the past, maybe the last 2-3 years, your returns has been very poor, you've not been even probably declaring dividend and all of that, that could be, a showstopper for the investors, unless there are specific things you are bringing on the table that this new investment is going to spur growth, is going to spur innovation, and of course bring forth good returns to the shareholders. So in terms of what are they bringing, how are these capital building, like you mentioned, through share issue, right offers and all of that, they will definitely come in, and shareholders on the stock exchange and even private investors are likely going to bring in their funds. And essentially, we're likely going to see more of foreign investors bringing in more funds because they understand what insurance business is, and they're likely going to want to participate significantly at this moment.
All right, then let me ask this question then. Looking at how this process has started and how the traction it has gained, do you think there's a possibility for an extension to that deadline?
Well, I want to leave that to NAICOM, and I'm sure it's going to depend on whatsoever they see from the monitoring process. But it is neither here nor there. For those that want to make a quick win, they will want to do that quick win before the deadline.
All right, but when this whole process is, done and dusted, do you think the insurance sector, some of the challenges that we've seen over time in that sector will be addressed? For one particularly is the low penetration we're seeing from Nigerians in that space. Do you think this would by some extent move the needle on penetration?
I believe that it has to go beyond the recapitalization process because in terms of penetration, what penetration needs compared to other African countries that we've seen, first is education. There needs to be that significant education, especially in our culture. We have diverse cultures that require people believe that, and of course, culture and religion. There are some religions that believe that God is going to, God will do it, but of course, you need to put in, God should give you the process and the grace and the mindset to put in, stop gaps so that when it happens, the provision will be made. Of course, God would have provided a house for you wherever you want to go into. So our insurance, the industry, we need to do quite a lot of education. And of course, innovation. We need to be, the platform is there. We have quite a lot of IT platforms within the industry that can be used, to go into the market. You need to be innovative. And then there needs to be, of course, very important collaboration. Collaboration between the banks, the regulators need to come together. NAICOM also, from my perspective, needs to be upgraded from just reporting to a ministry. Of course, the CBN reports to the president. So NAICOM needs to be upgraded so that they will have that free will.
That autonomy.
Exactly, that autonomy to be able to do what is important for the industry. We have a large market, and of course, the capital is there right now, but that innovation, growth, and education needs to come on board.
All right, then. Thank you so much for your contribution so
Thank
far.
you.
One of the key stories we've been following so far, the recapitalization of Nigeria's insurance